one of the strengths that always stands out to me about Web3 is like we can have applications talking to each other on the same network of which is inside of this walled garden where all of the computation is verified.
Get ready. Get ready. You are about to join the crypto revolution. The crypto revolution. This is the Crypto Mastery Podcast with Kevin Jones, where we talk about the future of money and elevate your knowledge in the space.
What's up, everyone? This is Kevin Jones, builder and educator in crypto, and this is the Crypto Mastery Podcast, where we talk about the crypto industry and elevate your knowledge in the space. The podcast is brought to you by SpeedRunEthereum. Test your skills and learn how to build decentralized applications on Ethereum at SpeedRunEthereum.com. Today, I will be speaking with alphak3y. alphak3y is an infrastructure automation engineer at heart. He first dove into smart contracts by participating in ETH Online, the largest ETH Global hackathon every year, in which he built an NFT contract using off-chain keepers to place automated trades. For the last couple of years, he has set his sights on improving outcomes for liquidity providers and becoming a more well-versed Web3 developer along the way. All right, let's get into this. alphak3y, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited for our conversation today, and thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome. Obviously, we've met at a couple conferences. I think specifically, or most recently, ETHSF. I don't think that you weren't at DEF CON, were you?
I was at DEF CON. We didn't remember. I tried to run into you, and I was working the Build Guild booth, and somehow we missed each other. But I was there, and I was a little bummed we didn't get to meet up. But yeah, it was nice to see you in San Francisco.
100%. And then we first interacted at ETH Denver of last year, so that was almost a year ago.
I know, it's crazy. And I was just talking to Simone earlier about ETH Denver, and I'm a little bummed. I'm probably not going to make it this year because I got the baby on the way. But are you going to go this year?
Oh, I'm 100% going.
Super jealous. That's such a cool event. It was actually my first Ethereum conference last year. So to me, it's kind of a cool experience. I'm interested to see how different it's going to be this year. But you'll have to tell me all about it.
Oh, 100%. There's already some talk of people wanting to do a rap battle at ETH Denver.
A rap battle?
Yeah. So we were joking about I guess having debates in Twitter Spaces and that, and that morphed into, hey, well, let's just make it a joke and do a rap battle, and we can talk smack about each other's protocols.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, you got to make sure you record that if it happens, because I'm definitely going to post that on my YouTube. So, yeah. So, I mean, what have you been up to? Well, first of all, how was your holiday? Did you get a chance to wind down a little bit, relax?
I've basically been building the entire time. I know that's probably exciting to listeners. Yes, I was building the entire holiday. Unfortunately, I had some family that ended up in the hospital, and yeah, my mom is actually spending time with that family member right now, and so I'm still here, still working on stuff, and I've been spending some time cycling indoors. So if anybody's familiar with Zwift, it's like an indoor cycling app. I've been using that quite a bit and doing some intense sessions on there. So that's been fun. And yeah, other than that, just focused on building.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things I lack in is getting some exercise in. I have a 2-year-old, so a lot of that is just chasing him around the living room or whatever. But I think I need to do a better job at doing something like that. I wanted to get one of those rowing machines. Have you seen those?
Yeah, just a sort of a pull machine that you would find at the gym.
Yeah. I was thinking about maybe getting one of those because, to me, it's kind of an interesting workout, and it would be cool to actually, use that and actually go rowing in real life too, right? Same thing with bicycling, right? Or bicycling. Something you can kind of take out and get out of the house as well. But no, that's awesome that you're able to recharge at least a little bit. I think like that's important, right? So I mean, for listeners who don't know Alpha Key, I know you're a little anon, but tell us like a little bit about yourself. Like, what have you been up to as far as like the space? How did you get into the technology? How did you get into Web3? Tell us about you.
Yeah, so most recently I was, as far as crypto goes, like in 2017, I was really just coming at the perspective of a retail investor, like everybody else, you know, investing on Binance and such, and buying the latest scam tokens. But this time around, so this was early 2021. I sort of knew like, okay, Bitcoin is kind of going back to this all time high, and okay, that's going to be a pretty big deal if it passes that. And early 2021, I was watching something from Ivan on Tech, and he was showing Glassnode analytics and showing what the top wallets were doing for Bitcoin, like were they holding it, were they selling it, and I thought, okay, actually, this sort of transparency is actually quite amazing, and if I can use this to make trading or market based decisions, like that's pretty awesome. Like that kind of excites me. And I remember before I left for travel in 2019, somebody was trying to show me XRP, and I was like, okay, like I don't really see how this is exciting. Like, um, how does this, sort of re-engineer the financial system? I sort of always thought like, okay, if we're going to re-engineer the financial system, like it has to be a new philosophy. So um, I would say this sort of transparency in data really excited me. And then I started getting into automated trading, doing arbitrage between centralized exchanges. Then shortly after that, got into DeFi yield farming. And once I was like, hey, these people are just like printing these tokens out of like they're basically able to figure out these incentive structures, like how to incentivize people. I thought that was really interesting, and I think from that point, I was basically hooked on DeFi.
That's awesome. And I think your background was originally in like fintech, right? Like, so how did that kind of how did you make that jump from fintech to crypto?
Yeah, so my background is mostly building infrastructure in the centralized cloud, so AWS, Terraform, Kafka, which is like a message queuing open source software, as well as Elasticsearch, which is a distributed search engine. I kind of have always thought of distributed systems are really similar, or the similarity, the overlap between distributed systems and centralized cloud and blockchain is that they're a group of computers that work together to achieve a common goal. So, in the same way that computers can work together to, produce some, I don't know, like a distributed search engine, you can have a group of computers work together to achieve consensus. So definitely, like you called the fact that I participated in a hackathon. So that was, I guess, August 2021. I participated, or maybe it was September. Yeah, it was September 2021. I participated in ETH Online, and that was definitely when I made the leap. Shortly before that, I um, I had forked open source 1inch, and I upgraded it to the latest version of Solidity. So the original version was in 0.5 version of Solidity, and I upgraded it to 0.8. So, like originally, we had like 300 errors. So, like me and two other developers, we had 300 errors to work down. I mean, most of them were like repeated, but uh, to work down those 300 errors and make the compiler happy, that was, I think, what really like kickstarted my foray into smart contracts. And basically, all of this year has been spent writing smart contracts. So I would say I'm pretty deep into the smart contract development side of things. And yeah, I there's no going back. I'm already too
Yeah.
deep.
You're down the rabbit hole. You fell down, and we're not going to get you out. You're stuck there. That's awesome. So, I mean, did you practice computer science in school, or was this something that you just kind of like picked up along the way? Like, what's your background as far as like school, and how'd you get into that kind of aspect of it?
Yeah, so I do have a computer science degree, and like when I was originally in college, I didn't even think that I could do computer science. Like I thought that it wasn't something that I was naturally good at. Like I did grow up like playing video games and being interested in computers and technology. I just thought that programming was like a whole different sphere, and I always had a mystique about it. I Until I took my first like computer science course one summer, where I was like, university like basement dweller, uh, using like old computers from like the 80s, like some basic Unix desktop. I never really imagined myself being great at computer science, but because I was always good at math uh, growing up, and yeah, like definitely there's a very large amount of overlap between computer science and math, but I don't know. I just never really imagined myself doing that until I started actually doing it, and then I'm like, wait, this is really fun. I enjoy it. Uh, then it became obvious to me that that was the path that I wanted to go down.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you go to school, and at least when I went to school, like a lot of the stuff they teach you is like really basic, but it gives you this kind of like foundation of like understanding like technicalities, and like, simple networking and stuff like that. But I think after you get out of school, like that's where you really need to make the decision on what kind of interesting things you want to do. And I guess that's cool that you've kind of made that kind of path towards computer science, and then you kind of use that with the fintech stuff that you've done. We have kind of a similar background. My background's kind of been in like site reliability and operations, DevOps related stuff, which I think you've probably done a little bit of stuff like that as well, right? Um, and I think we both kind of have similar things where we came to this realization that like building out decentralized applications is kind of just, it makes sense, and it's a lot of fun. Do you kind of feel the same way that like the concept of decentralization and building these Web3 style applications is just a more interesting way, or like what really appeals to you about Web3 and this new way of building apps?
Yeah, I mean, just from like a value from a developer perspective is like you don't have to manage or scale any of the infrastructure, right? Nor do you like certainly like in the initial deployment of the smart contracts, you have to think about security, but after that, you don't have to really worry about the infrastructure uh, at all for the most part, right? Obviously, there might be edge cases there, but it really abstracts the management of the infrastructure away from the developer so that they can really focus on applications. Obviously, there's like the block gas limit, which for people coming over from traditional development, like is definitely a sort of a cap on the amount of like computation that you can reasonably do in a single transaction. Of course, that's for security purposes and being able to achieve consensus. But yeah, I think just the openness, that it's not sort of managed by any person. You know exactly how it's going to work on chain. It's immutable. Anybody can see it. Anybody can verify it, and we can sort of all build on top of it in this open and public way. And I think that is that's to me what stands out more than anything. And I think it's very much like the initial. I know this is like often like a very crappy comparison, but in some ways to me it is mirrors like the early portions of the internet, and from an informational perspective, like how the internet created this open wealth of information, and Web3 is kind of uh, doing the same, obviously for a myriad of cases. There's this really interesting video from like the 19 I want to say the 1990s of Jaron Lanier talking about how the future of the internet was like the public actually taking control of the infrastructure and sort of this network of computers like communicating with each other and sort of forming this virtual world around that. And I think, that is sort of what we're creating is this network of computers and people that, uh, you know, where everything is very deterministic. Is a word that I like to use a lot with Web3. We know exactly how it's going to behave. We know it's exactly what's going to happen, and so all that we need to do is just ultimately trust the technology that is, coded and patterned in a specific way to carry out its task instead of humans, which will constantly go and change the process and kind of bend it to their own specific needs rather than just having this cohesive set of applications that blend and work together. And yeah, I think that's ultimately what we're building is like an ecosystem. If it's permissioned, then why a blockchain, right? I think is the question that often comes up. And one of the strengths that always stands out to me about Web3 is like we can have applications talking to each other on the same network of which is inside of this walled garden where all of the computation is verified. It's more of a conversation rather than a single person or smaller set of nodes talking to you. It's to me it's instead of some like one person shouting at you, your bank shouting at you like, "Hey, you have this much money in your account." It's like a conversation. It's a group of people that are telling you that, and yeah, I think it's if I could sort of frame it as what the natural like if technology existed in nature, I think that it would look something more like Web3 than what we have today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I also feel that like the way that like Web3 and the technology behind it is built is it kind of helps enable kind of like coordination, right? It makes it easier for
Mm.
people as a whole to coordinate. And then you kind of dived into something for a second there too, where you talked about kind of this like trustless mentality where like, that if you deploy a smart contract on the blockchain, that if, you can read and understand the code and you actually understand what it's doing, you can trust it, right? And outside of any kind of like, vulnerabilities, maybe in like the compiler or some kind of like issue with the actual code, it's pretty trustworthy, right? Because there is no third party, right? And I think the same goes for like the financial aspect of Web3 and for crypto, right? Is it gives more power back to the individuals participating in the network to be able to take control, right, of how their money is used and how they uh, uh, participate in the network in that way in finance. What are your thoughts on like I just to kind of touch because we're touching a little bit on some interesting stuff here. What are your thoughts on the future in terms of like zk rollups and zero knowledge proof stuff like security? Do you think that that's going to be an important part of like 2023? Because I feel that like that's one of the things that might be missing in the space right now is the lack of like privacy for certain networks. And since when you're dealing in like something like a blockchain, right, it's publicly available and stuff like that. Do you think more security stuff is going to be important this year?
I mean, I definitely think over the long term, yes. Certainly, one of the benefits that Web3 can offer to average users is being able to have sovereign control and ownership over their data and being able to reveal that to any party that they choose. So, instead of apps being able to monetize people by extracting data for them, they'll be able to obscure their data, and thus, you know, my hope is that parties will have to come to them with incentives uh, for them to reveal their data, and that will put more power back in the individual. And I think that's definitely something long term that uh, makes Web3 a much more uh, superior tool for self sovereignty than the traditional financial or informational systems that we have today.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that during the holidays you were working a little bit. So it sounds to me like you're working on something pretty cool. We've talked about it briefly, but for viewers that are listening in, or people that are interested, can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on?
Yeah, so the project that I've been working on is called Poolshark Protocol, and it's sort of a vision that I've had for at this point multiple years, and that vision has been to basically resolve what I believe to be the biggest issue in decentralized exchange, which is impermanent loss, the phenomenon known as impermanent loss. And I remember when I first started getting into yield farming, that I'd sort of wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, my position's down 30-40%. Like, how can I sort of protect myself against the additional losses that you incur from impermanent loss?" And it was definitely no short journey to get to a point of understanding what that phenomenon really is. And to me, it is just the difference between what the market price is, which, like, okay, if you hold your ETH and die to some ETH price, um, uh, holding versus providing liquidity on decentralized exchange, where you would actually sell ETH over some price. So if you have one ETH at a price of 3,000 DAI per ETH, and the market price goes to 5,000, and that's the you sell your one ETH over 3,000 to 5,000 on Uniswap V3, you will sell that one ETH at an average of about $3,800. And so that $1,200 gap is the quote impermanent loss that you would experience at a market price of $5,000. And the way to fix that is to actually take the other side of that. So you would actually buy ETH at an average of $3,800. And what the Poolshark protocol does is it uses the same x times y equals k math that Uniswap v3 does, except it allows you to take the other side with what we're calling cover pools. So yeah, essentially you can think of an LP position as like shorting volatility, right? Because like as the price increases on one side, you're selling that side and thinking, okay, well, it's gonna what people often refer to as revert back to the mean or mean reversion. You're going to get back to whatever at some point the price is going to come back to the middle of whatever your position is. But let's say at some point between $3,000 and $5,000, you want to rebalance your position. Well, now you need to sort of cover that short and cover the other side of that, and that's what these pools will allow you to do. So you can effectively think of it like a stop loss, so to speak. Stop loss is a range order for people coming from traditional finance. So essentially, okay, well, you've allocated some DAI as the TWAP or the total weighted average price moves up. Some of your DAI liquidity is going to unlock. You're going to purchase ETH, and you're going to adopt a buy and hold strategy so that you can regain those lost profits. Obviously, there's always the risk of the market moving against you. But if you slowly buy that ETH over quite a large range, it gives you quite a big margin to play with in terms of being able to still lock in some profits. So ultimately, what I think in my vision, what the future of decentralized exchange looks like is that you're not allocating 100% to an LP position, but you're actually you're allocating maybe about two thirds of your position to an LP, and then one third to cover the losses. You'd be making a directional bet in this case, and um, I don't want to make any price predictions or anything, but when you're beaten down so badly, or the prices like skyrocketed, it's probably not crazy to take the other side of that and say, okay, well, it's probably going to go down in price, or hey, we're beaten down pretty badly. It's like at some point it's probably going to go back up. But obviously there's no 100% guarantee. So,
yeah,
but
of course.
the cool thing is that like liquidity providers have never had a gas efficient way to um, basically accumulate ETH slowly as the price goes up. Like if you did this uh, as an off-chain user, it would cost quite a bit of gas because you'd have to keep going initiate swaps against the liquidity that exists on chain today.
Got you. So, I mean, would you almost call it like it's almost like an automated market maker? Like it will, I guess, how does it look like from a user perspective? If they deposit a certain amount, will this kind of be automated in a way that they can kind of step away from it and they don't have to do those swaps? Like, how does that work exactly?
Yes. So let's say that you're going to cover your impermanent loss from $3,000 to $5,000. Starting at a price of 3,000, you move up to the first tick, and that will unlock that amount of liquidity for that tick as the TWAP moves up. So then, let's say that the TWAP is 3,000. The price on Uniswap could be 3010. So now we have to actually find the natural market price. So how we resolve that is we use this mechanism that Paradigm put out a research paper on early this year, or early last year, sorry, 2022, which is called gradual Dutch auctions. So every bit of liquidity that we unlock is essentially a Dutch auction, and depending on the demand that is incoming each block, we're going to adjust the price of that liquidity. So if for the first block, that liquidity is there and nobody is going to purchase that liquidity, we're going to say, okay, we're going to give the trader a little better execution. So instead of being able to sell their ETH for 3,000, we'll say, okay, we'll buy your ETH for 3,000, 3,001 or 3,002, right? And this way you can find the natural market price before the price escapes you. So there's a sort of design space that opens up. But yes, it absolutely is an automated market maker. Uses the same DYDX math that people are familiar with from Uniswap, Curve, SushiSwap, so forth. And ultimately, that's how you're able to match the sort of potential losses that could be experienced in a typical liquidity position.
Awesome. I just realized I totally should have worn your Poolshark Protocol shirt you gave me because I have that sitting over here. I totally forgot to wear it.
that's we actually we changed the logo, so you got the alpha. We changed the logo, but yeah, I grew up. I didn't talk about this, but like I grew up skateboarding, so like I kind of always wanted the brand to feel like something that I could walk into like a skateboard shop and pick up. So
Nice. Are you also a pool shark?
well, if you Google, there's some sort of like skating brigade, something called like pool sharks, and there are guys from California that I guess would raid people's backyards and go and skate their pools.
Oh wow! So this, it sounds like something probably based here out of Santa Cruz. Sounds like something that I would see. That's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
perhaps you'll have to Google that one.
Yeah. This is really cool. I mean, this sounds like a pretty amazing project. And we didn't really get a chance to dive into it the last few times that we met in person. So it's exciting to hear it. What does your team look like, and like how are you guys how far along are you on the process, or where are you at with it?
Yeah, so the smart contract development I would say is mostly done, at least for the cover pools. And yeah, that's where I've spent a lot of the last couple months figuring that out and making sure that I've sort of covered all the cases there. So myself, I'm the one and only backend developer. Like it has actually been a lot easier when like I've had the full freedom of developing the smart contracts, also working on the subgraph as well. And then we have two guys that work on the front end. One that works on like the Next.js app. One that is more on the design slash CSS side. So he'll do all the HTML and CSS as well as the UI design, and which you can, if you go and look on our Twitter, the pinned tweet that's there has a little image of the UI. And we have about 8 people in total, so 3 engineers, and then we have a team of 3 people that are kind of working on like biz dev. The product is like absolutely the most important thing. So from that perspective, users can expect, hey, I'm going to be able to come and see my Uniswap v3 positions, and basically just click that position. It's going to suggest a range for which you can cover, and then you'll simply just mint a position just like that.
Gotcha. And when do you think we can expect to see like a white paper or something to kind of learn about the tech?
Yeah, so if you go to docs.poolsharks.io, there's already a good amount of information up there, as well as some architecture diagrams where you can start to understand from a visual perspective how this is working from the user side of things. The white paper I've been putting together this past week, and I'm expecting to release that next week, the first version. I don't expect that it will be absolutely perfect in terms of like detailing everything, but I will definitely make it as detailed as possible, and outline the major concepts that are at play to enable the gas efficiency side of things.
Yeah, yeah. Gas efficiency is very, very important, and so I'm excited to read more about that. You'll have to shoot me the white paper when it's available, and I'll make sure to add it to the show notes. So this has really been interesting because hearing like the timing that you got involved in kind of building in Ethereum, and as far as like writing Solidity smart contracts, it's been pretty quick. You've kind of got up and running like really, really quick, and already contributing to the community a lot. Like what's your secret? Like, how did you onboard into writing smart contracts and Solidity and understanding the concepts of blockchain? For anyone listening who is maybe starting to learn about this, and wants to learn more, like what are your tips for them?
Yeah, so as I mentioned early in the episode, the first Solidity that I ever wrote was forking the open source version of 1inch and upgrading that, which like I strongly recommend doing something like that. Like find some piece of code which is like outdated, maybe Solidity like 0.6, and then simply say, okay, well, let's upgrade to the latest version of Solidity. And you'll find that that will actually teach you quite a bit of the principles that are needed to write smart contracts. And then from there, it was just doing hackathons, building applications, really thinking about, for example, ERC20 is like the ERC20 contract is what actually has the balance. It's not like the token actually lives in your wallet, so to speak. It lives. Your balance lives on the contract. So I think there's a lot of concepts that people that participate in hackathons will actually be able to learn. I really recommend doing long form hackathons, i.e., 1 week plus. So I believe the ETH Online hackathon that I did in 2021, I think that was 2 or 3 weeks. I think we had 2 or 3 weeks to bang that out. So I really might recommend the long form hackathons. The weekend hackathons are kind of hard to pull together, and especially if you're newer, to be able to have enough time to actually dive deep and actually understand uh, what you're building slash doing, and leverage enough of the core technologies. Um, yeah, I really recommend diving into subgraphs as well if you're interested in back end development. Another core component of Web3 development, I would say, is going to be React hooks that work with Ethereum. So, of course, like the block number is sort of the heartbeat of the clock of the blockchain, if you will. And from a front end app perspective, you have to make sure that all the values on the app are updating every block that happens where there's some sort of state change. And that's why all these front end hooks libraries exist. Like, for example, WAGME is one. What is it? Web3 React. That one's used in the Uniswap app. And then used app, which there's definitely a lot of apps that are using that. I personally like used app. My team has pushed us towards WAGME. But I personally like the used app. And I found out about used app through one of the ETH Global hackathons. It might have been ETH Online, I believe. So I think hackathons are a really good opportunity to learn about a lot of the technologies that developers are using to build applications, and to just kind of have the bravery to just jump in and start tinkering with things.
Yeah, something you mentioned too, like about the hackathons, like the virtual ones, I agree. Like they kind of give you a little bit more comfort zone, especially if you're new getting in, because you can kind of use that time to learn along the way. And I do agree that like the weekend hackathons can be a little brutal. Obviously, being at a lot of them, even seeing yourself, in the last few minutes, submitting your project, can be a little stressful. But I do think there's some luster to go into the in-person events. I like being able to talk to the vendors and feel the vibe as well. But I totally agree with you that the long form hackathons are really nice. It would actually be even cooler if they did something where it was like a combination of like virtual for the first couple of weeks and then it ends in an in-person event. I think that might be interesting as well. That's awesome. So as far as like, you know, your kind of goals and aspirations for 2023, do you have any kind of like things that you're excited about this year? Obviously, you're working on Poolshark Protocol. What are your feelings there for this year? What are you excited about?
It's so hard for me to think 3 to 4 months down the line because I'm so focused on the now. Um, I think I'm really I think I'm more than anything I'm excited for L2 technology to continue to improve. And I think that you had mentioned zk EVMs being a big narrative in 2023. I also think like something that people are going to want to start thinking about or looking for is custom L2 execution environments. And yeah, there's probably people that will dislike me for saying this, but I think that the EVM is like super great for decentralization, because like it's made for single threaded machines. It sort of doesn't have this like crazy state bloat. I'm really excited to see what custom execution environments that are built on top of Ethereum can do. Um, One of those is Fuel Network, which you're you're probably familiar that I've been shilling, but I really do believe in the technology from the perspective of parallelization, being able to do more compute in less time, and then roll that up onto Ethereum, the base layer. And I'm really excited to see more projects doing stuff like that can kind of change the user experience fundamentally. So their UTXO model, you send tokens directly to the contract, and what this means is that you can actually avoid having token approvals altogether, because it's just UTXO, it's unspent transaction model. So the contract just says like, hey, what native assets did I receive and how much, and then it really cuts the user experience down in half, and it's that many less clicks that they have to do. So I'm really looking for user experiences like that, because I really believe that those kind of experiences can bring like the next set of users. That perhaps the last wave of users were willing to deal with a lot of the things that we had to put up with, like managing our seed phrase and all that stuff. And those are things that obviously sovereign users like really care about. I'm very curious to see what kind of solutions we can enable. So like more users don't have to open up their MetaMask and like, okay, it's like 20 word seed phrase. I like somehow have to remember this. And yeah, like I'm really looking for those key user experience improvements uh, to kind of drive us into, further into the adoption curve.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% there on that. That's a very important aspect that I think is missing, right? Privacy and user experience are definitely top of mind on my list. And I'm really interested to see more evolution in this like modular blockchain architecture stuff as well, which obviously like, Fuel Labs and I forget the other popular modular blockchain, Celeste, is it?
Yeah.
Um,
Celestia, which is essentially a data availability layer. So you as a rollup could roll up data onto Celestia, and then Celestia would bridge that onto Ethereum on behalf of the rollup. So, and they also use a proof of stake mechanism to secure the network. At least that's the plan.
yeah.
Ultimately, those technologies are very untested, and so like obviously there should be a huge like disclaimer on everything that I'm discussing is like it's major alpha. Ethereum is sort of the battle tested application layer for smart contracts, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. But I'm definitely looking for things that I think can gain traction over time, as opposed to like, hey, I'll pay you some amount of money to come and write smart contracts in my my sexy smart contract language, but then ultimately it's kind of difficult to cross the chasm in terms of developer tooling and ultimately keep developers on board. Which we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of ecosystems kind of grow and then shrink, simply because the developer tooling wasn't there to retain them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening, in the next month or so, I'm going to have Cami on from Fuel Labs, so that'll definitely be one that you'll want to check out. So make sure you subscribe, and you'll get alerts for that when that comes out. Um, yeah, so that's really great, and I really have enjoyed our conversation about crypto and kind of where you're seeing the space going. I'm kind of curious, like, what do you like to do outside of technology? Do you have any hobbies that you like? I know you mentioned cycling. Anything else you really are excited about?
Well, in going to all these Ethereum conferences, like I went to so many last year, starting off with what was it, Dev Connect, which I also saw you at that conference as well. Or no, sorry,
Yeah.
it was ETH Denver. Then it was Dev Connect.
ETH, I think
Um,
it was ETH Amsterdam too. I saw you there. You were there as well, right?
yes, Dev Connect ETH/ETH Amsterdam, like,
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
which
Yeah. It was
I
both.
really hope happens again this year. Like that was probably one of the best events last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, that was amazing. I actually didn't get to go to Dev Connect because I think I showed up like the last day. So I'm excited to maybe try to go this year. I think it's usually April, right? Or something like that. Trying to remember.
Well, last year was the first year that they did Dev Connect. Well, ETH Amsterdam, I think, had been done in previous years. That was the first in-person hackathon that I believe ETH Global had done in like some years, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
you're correct. Yep.
So that was quite a big deal, I feel, and yeah, I think that was one of the most memorable events of the
Yeah.
year.
Plus, I just love Amsterdam too. Amsterdam just has such a
Oh,
good vibe, you know.
it's great. Very very diverse. Overall, very clean city. I did get a lot of traffic tickets there, so or like parking tickets. So I hope nobody from the Amsterdam DMV or whatever is listening. But I had a lot of parking tickets because I parked near the river,
Uh,
and I guess I there's actually like houses along the river there
mhm.
if you park there. And so like I parked there thinking like, oh yeah, I can just like park here for free. Like I guess we had been told that from somebody. And
Yeah.
then came to find out when I returned the rental, hey, you got like 4 or 5 traffic tickets or parking tickets. I'm like, okay, that's not good.
They don't put them on the window in Amsterdam. Like, what is that? Just an American thing?
No, 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 no. No, no, I never
Wow.
received that. But the rental company informed me when after I returned the vehicle. They said, yeah, we regret to inform you, you got like 4 parking tickets, buddy. So,
At least they're saving the environment with every ticket, you know?
yeah, that
Yeah,
that could be the intention there.
yeah. So, what is your next event? Where can we see you next? Denver, I assume, right?
Yes, I 100% gonna be at ETH Denver. Um, hopefully they have the last year they had the skiing.
Yeah, I didn't stay for the ski trip. I ended up. I'm trying to remember. I think I showed up like the last day of the hackathon, and then I was shooting photos. I was volunteering for ETH Denver, so I was kind of just running around shooting photos, and then I ended up leaving. I think that last night, but yeah, a lot of people took off and went skiing for the weekend, which sounds amazing. I would totally, if I was going this year, that would definitely be on my radar. I would want to do that. But it looks like maybe I'll be able to go to ETH Tokyo. So I don't know if you're planning on
Ooh,
that one, but that should be a lot of fun. The ETH Global calendar this year is amazing, and Tokyo is definitely one I'm very interested in. So
I am definitely gonna go check that. I was very sad that they canceled ETH Taipei last year. I was really looking forward to that. That didn't happen. It ended
yeah,
up being replaced by ETH India.
have you been to Taiwan before?
Yes, I spent 15 months in Taiwan, actually, right during the pandemic. So early in, well, actually, like I landed in Taiwan like 2 weeks before the pandemic started, and then I ended up staying there for 15 months, and it was probably the best time of my life. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Nice.
I never once was faced with having to deal with the pandemic until I left the country 15 months
Oh
later.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah, here
Never
in the
never
States, I
had to
mean, it was a
interface with the
nightmare.
pandemic.
It was like everyone shut down everything, and it was just like going to Costco runs because the end of the world was coming. You know, it's like. So I've been to Taipei once, and I really, really enjoyed it. We ended up staying. My wife has some friends there, and so we went to kind of like the west side of the island, and we spent some time in Taipei as well, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city, beautiful country. So I'm excited to go back there as well. So yeah, we'll have to find a reason to go there. alphak3y.
Yeah, I have to admit there's a small set of random people I've met going to different ETH conferences that have a connection uh, to the island. But for me, it was like I got the chance to do so much cycling there. So like the island is shaped like a leaf, and you can take the train. I guess you're familiar if you've been there before, but you can take the
Mm-hmm.
train around the island. Um, I when I first got there, I cycled around the island. It's about I think 1,000 kilometers total if you cycle around the island, and then they also have some of the tallest mountains in the world there. They have the I think it's fourth or fifth longest cycling climb in the world, which is Taiwan KOM,
Wow.
and yeah,
Wow, you're pretty active. I know you told me that in Colombia that you ran up and down the mountainside, and you sounds to me like you drove all around Taiwan. What else do you do? As far as like
I mean
crazy.
that's most actually. So what I went there to do was I was like, okay, I'm gonna cycle around the island, and actually my plan was to go to do an Ironman in Vietnam. Like I was training for an Ironman at the time, and uh, ended up doing the one in Taiwan, which was the only Ironman race that they had in all of Asia um, that year. Uh, so yeah, I was planning to go to that. Swim, bike, run, essentially.
That's awesome, man. You're a triathlon or a triathlete. Now I can say I know a triathlete.
Yes, and I had before I started, I had in like October of 2019, I had zero experience swimming whatsoever, and now I can gladly say that enjoy, I do enjoy swimming in the open water. Like it's something that probably most people wouldn't think that they would do, but
Yeah.
uh, it's it can be a scary thing though because you can't always see the bottom of the water. Or the,
Yeah, I used to live in Hawaii for a while, and we would, in Hawaii, there's a lot of spots where you go, and it's like really super deep, and the ocean's not anything to take lightly, right? It can be a little scary and a little dangerous, but I personally love getting in the ocean, especially if the water's warm. The water's cold, not so much. Here in Santa Cruz, it's a little too cold. So, but what was the water like in Taiwan? Was it pretty cold?
um, no, I think it was pretty mild from what I remember. I don't really. I think I don't think it was too hot or too cold.
Cool.
Uh, from
I'll
what I
write it
remember.
down.
But obviously, you've got the whole coast around the entire island. Um, but yeah, you could do some quite great swimming in like the northeast of Taipei. You could do some swimming there. Some guy just like randomly picked me up. Like literally only in Taiwan would you allow somebody to do this for you. But like I was hanging out at this local swimming pool, and this guy's like, "Hey, like I'll drive you to the coast, and like I'll take you to all these like places that you can swim out in the open water." And I thought like, okay, this guy's like super weird. Like, why is this guy saying this to me? And then eventually he did drive me. He's like a taxi driver. And he drove me all the way to the coast, and he took me to all these like random open water swimming spots um, along the coast, and
That's awesome.
only in Taiwan would you allow somebody to randomly do that for you. Like I don't know
Yeah, maybe in Japan
other
too.
places.
Japan's kind of like that too. Super safe.
Yeah, I've heard that Japan is even like the general culture. Like they're even more honorable than like Taiwan, where like you
Yeah,
could literally leave like your phone on a table and come back a week later, and like your phone will still be there.
yeah, yeah. I was on a subway in Tokyo one time, and like I forget, I had like dropped something. Oh no, I was late for the train, And like my wife was in line ready to get on, and I was hungry. So I like ran over to try to buy some kind of snack, and like I paid the girl and I just like said, keep the change, like, and I just gave it all to her and I walked away. And so I ran back to get on the train and she chased after me to give me my change. And I was just like, okay, all right, that's how honorable you are. I appreciate that. Thank you. But you didn't really need to do that. I literally wanted to give it all to you. So yeah, Japan is a lot like that as well. And then I think I left something on a bench. That's what it was. I left my beanie on the bench, and then we went on this tour all through. We did this huge loop, came back, and it was still there. So yeah, people are super nice in Tokyo, or at least in Japan, I think as a whole. So well,
I think it's fair to say that Taiwan is essentially like Japan's little brother.
oh nice. Yeah, I miss Taiwan. Definitely want to go back there. It's definitely on my list. I think all over Asia is just a lot of fun to travel in that area. Singapore as well. I've been to Singapore once. Korea is amazing. Just all of Asia is a lot of fun. So, well, alphak3y, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's really been awesome chatting with you, learning more about you. I feel like I learned a lot about you on this session. So, where can people follow you or learn more about you or some of the projects you're working on?
Yeah, so definitely feel free to follow me on Twitter at alphak3y, alphak3y. Also, my bio is the project I mentioned, which is Poolshark Protocol. And yeah, feel free to send me a DM, and happy to connect on other platforms. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think this has been a really good session, and I think people are going to get a lot of good information out of this. And again, there's a lot of really, really good, great information. So thanks so much again. And if you guys are listening, please subscribe to my podcast. This is something we'll be doing at least weekly episodes. And yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.